Guys, good Friday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. On this network, and we're powered by Yes Realty Partners. We're presented by Sigora Solar, and just the best of the housing supply chain. And if you look at the screen now, you will see our partners that have certainly optimized the experience of housing and made it extremely efficient. Folks, today's your opportunity to like and share the show and engage with two community stakeholders. Colette Sheehy is in the house, the Senior Vice President for Operations and State Government Relations at the University of Virginia, and Alice Raucher, the architect for the University of Virginia. We will welcome multiple media outlets to the program, including two in Richmond on the show today. Judah Wickower, my friend, our director and North Star. If you could go to the foreshot and welcome our guests and Keith Smith to the show. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
Great to have you. And as promised, the start of the program, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching. Colette, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Well, I am a New Jersey native. Moved here in 1982. I'm in my 40th year at the University of Virginia. I started when I was a child. But I have kind of grown up professionally at UVA, had a little bit of a stint at commercial banking before I came here. Graduated from Bucknell University, undergrad, and Rutgers Graduate School of Management for my MBA. Love doing what I do, love the university, love Charlottesville, actually. It's a great place to live, to raise a family. I have one daughter, two stepchildren, a boy and a girl. Local for the moment. My daughter's in graduate school at the Commerce School and ready to move to New York come summer.
Ooh.
So
that's a young person's town.
Yeah, well, she is quite excited. She has always wanted to live in New York, so she's getting her dream, I think. Hope it works out for her.
Little factoid, you've been here as long as Ragged Mountain Running Shop. They're celebrating today their 40th anniversary.
Oh, well, I know
so
Mark
a little shout out.
Well.
Yeah, so a little when you after the show, give them a shout out. Wish happy 40 years today. Alice, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning, everybody. My family and I moved 7 years ago to Charlottesville. I have a daughter who is in her first year at JMU. Time flies and during this COVID time, but she's in her first year at JMU. My husband, among other talents, is a varsity field hockey coach for Monticello High School and just won the Central Virginia Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited about that.
Great news.
Arrived at UVA after spending about close to 9 years in New Haven at Yale doing a very similar job, and that was after about 20 years in private practice, working for firms in New York City, being on the faculty at Syracuse University and New York Institute of Technology. So we are, despite my being a native New Yorker, we are fully entrenched in all things Virginia.
How did you lose your New York accent? You and I left New York around the same time, right?
Keith, you haven't lost yours.
Yeah, you have not lost yours.
This is insane.
You stand out, Keith.
I have no. It must be. I'm just the education level or something. I left New York in 1980, about almost the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Lived overseas for half a decade. Married a beautiful Austrian woman. Moved here. Got out of the Corps in '86. Moved here in '87. Right. And I cannot lose this accent. I like to think it's endearing, but who knows?
I think it's charming, Keith.
Charming. Well, thank you so much.
It makes me feel right at home.
Alice, you can sit in this spot anytime you want and throw that stuff that way. So today's a big topic. I was excited about today. This is a great conversation to have. We were having a conversation pre-production conversation, and I'm pretty passionate about affordable housing. So is Jerry. So is everybody here at I Love Charlottesville and Real Talk. But it took quite a few years to get you guys kind of in the conversation and moving forward. So I kind of wanted to kick off, where UVA is doing this affordable housing initiative, 1,000 to 1,500 units. Let's talk about the genesis. Let's talk about how that conversation actually started, and then we'll kind of pick it up and where we are and where we're going.
Yeah. Well, it's really the brainchild of President Ryan.
Sure.
He arrived in 2018, really kind of coined the phrase "great and good university." Strongly believes that in order to be a great university, you also have to be a good university, and that means working with the community to make the place in which we all live, better. So we reached out to the community and basically, wanted to know from their perspective, what are the hot button issues for you? What are the things that the university might be able to help improve in the community? We got a lot of community input. There were lots of things identified, but the top 5 included affordable housing, the local economy, pathways to a job at UVA, early childhood education, and healthcare. So those 5 things form the crux of what is now called the President's Council on UVA and Community Partnerships. So there's a working group around each of those topics. And Alice and I are both on the working group for affordable housing, along with lots of other people. And, unfortunately, COVID took us back. We announced in 2020 that we wanted to help the community develop 1,000 to 1,500 units of affordable housing on land that either the university owned or our foundation owned over the next 10 years. And March 2020 came, and we all know what that meant. Everything shut down, so everything was put on hold while we grappled with the pandemic and what that meant for the university and our students. But just kind of re-energized the initiative and kicked it back off in April of 2021, and began again to collect some input from the community. Things move slowly at the university, I'll have to say. I'm sure that folks are probably impatient with us, but this is something that the university has never done before. We also, believe it, do not have any expertise in this field. And so we're really very interested in input from those who are in the space, in the community, from experts outside the community. We did hire a consultant, Gina Merritt, with Northern Real Estate Urban Ventures, and she is helping us through the process of getting to the point where we can solicit proposals from developers. So that's where we are. In December, we announced 3 sites.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty on those
So,
here in
yeah.
a little while, but you did a great job on hiring Gina. I had a couple of sit-down with her. She's guiding you guys in the right direction. From an architect's perspective, right? Because you're the architect for the university. How was this process so far? How was this process on selecting the sites, maybe from a practitioner's perspective?
Well, there's affordable housing has its own specific needs, right? So we looked at all the land holdings of the university and the foundation, and measured it against criteria that we would think made it appropriate for affordable housing or housing in general. So proximity to commercial centers, is the site walkable? Is it close to public transportation? All these things. And so, as you can imagine, as Colette mentioned, this is not, providing housing is not our prime business, so that the land we have acquired over the years has not been done through the lens of whether it would be good for affordable housing. And so, with that criteria in mind, we evaluated, along with Gina Merritt, all these sites, and whether some of the land holdings we have are not easily developable. They're raw land, or they're not accessible by public transportation or close to schools, et cetera. So I think the 3 parcels that we're proposing by process of elimination provide all that criteria. And again, this is the first step. We understand that this is going to happen over a decade. Right? We're probably not going to get to 1,000 to 1,500 units necessarily on these sites. However, this is now part of the process. And again, just to fill in something Colette mentioned, we heard loud and clear that the process was as important as the product. And so, we've taken it maybe slowly but carefully and mindfully and really listened to the community.
So let's talk about the 3 sites, right? You guys
We
selected.
should identify them.
I think that's what we need to
Yeah,
do
sure.
because the great outline, great setup, guys. But
Yeah.
we kind of need to get into the meat and potatoes of it, of the 3 sites. So there's 3 sites. There's Norfolk. So for those who are not are listening or may not be from the area, that's on 29 North, right? The second is Wirtland and 10th Avenue. This is on,
10th Street.
basically it's on Main Street, right? Right across from, if you're familiar with Main Street, it's the Draftsman, I believe is the
That's right,
hotel there. That's, of course, that's a city-owned, excuse me, a UVA-owned property in the city. And then the other one is Piedmont, which for those who are not familiar with the area, that is on Fontaine, across from the Fontaine Firehouse, right next to the Fontaine Research.
Correct.
Research Park,
And adjacent to other city neighborhoods.
other city neighborhoods. And we're going to get into this a little bit later. I actually took a dive into the 3 sites and the public comments thing of it, and it was very interesting, and I'd like to know why. The Piedmont had 12 pages of comments,
Yes.
right, from the public.
Yes.
And Norfolk and Wirtland only had 3. Why is that? Why did that project have 3 times the amount of public engagement comments?
Yeah, I guess, admittedly, I think we probably underestimated the reactions from that cohort of people. That Piedmont Housing is a faculty staff housing development. It's old. We've had it for a long time. It's meant to be transition housing for new faculty and staff. You can't live there for more than 4 years, but everyone is on an annual lease. So thinking that it's also not very densely developed, and Alice can talk more about that, which is
A lot of green space.
which is what made it attractive for affordable housing, something that we could, develop
Sure.
more densely and have more units. But the individuals who live there, many appear to be international faculty who come here. They have their young families, they have children in school, and I think they came thinking living there they could be there for 4 years. And now the announcement kind of caught them a little off guard, I
Sure.
think. We have since communicated that, we're not going to kick you out in May of this year. This is a long-term process. We said you can definitely stay until May of '23 and perhaps beyond that, depending on where the process takes us and the timing of all of that.
So let's talk about that, right? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So the folks who may be living there and listening
Yeah,
to this
yeah.
show or watching this show, this process from announcing the sites, right? The next steps we'll talk about a little bit later. There's going to be an RFP, that's a request for proposal or request for quote, whatever we're calling it, that's going to go out. And then I believe that's a city parcel
No, that's actually in
That's
the
a county.
county.
that's in
It's
the county.
just over the county, the
Wow.
city line in the county.
I did not know that. I
Well,
learned something today.
the city-county line really takes a lot of jigs and jags through.
Got it. So
through
it's
its
county,
grounds.
but it's owned by UVA, correct?
It
Yes.
is.
Got it. So there's a whole development process that has to go through that, which potentially could be years before we go through site plan, before we go through potential rezoning or community engagement. So I just want to put a little expectation out there that, because the site was chosen and we're going through a process, there's
Both those are not coming tomorrow.
May folks are not getting kicked, I don't think
No,
so,
no, no.
getting kicked out
Right.
on that end of it. So what is the next step, guys? What is the next step?
Well, we're evaluating all the community comments. The next step, tangibly, is to develop the request for qualifications, which is what you were mentioning, is to find a good partner who has experience doing, or good partners doing affordable housing, evaluating that, criteria for financial pro forma and, what their process would be for furthering the engagement with the community, and then shortlisting from that qualifications to then issue a request for proposals.
What do we anticipate, and I'm sure you guys get this question a lot, but groundbreaking, structures being created?
Yeah.
Well,
That's quite, well, I think we're minimum 90 days away from an RFQ.
Got it.
You know,
So
then-
we're going to call Q as qualifications.
Qualifications.
Qualifications, right? Not quote, but
qualifications,
qualifications.
right.
And I'll kind of jump in a little bit from the developer part of it. That's great. You're going to send your RFQ out. Then you're going to have a bunch of time added to
Yes.
that, and then you're going to have to go through the community engagement process, and then go through, just to go through the site. I can speak to this as a as a chairman of a land trust.
Yeah.
Just to build 4 houses took me a year and a half to get through the site plan process.
Right.
So there's going to be a long time before the groundbreaking gets into it. But I think what the important thing we need to start talking about is this survey, right? So you have a survey out there, right? And this is part of what we want to talk about today, is this survey, because this survey and how this is answered will impact this RFQ. Is that correct? It's going to impact how this RFQ is going to come together.
Right. I mean, we anticipate developing some design principles, which we're already kind of massaging based on the feedback we already have. We've got over 500 responses to the survey. It closes January 31st. Would love to get more responses to that. We'd like all the community input we can get.
We can drop the link. Why don't you get the link, Judah, from the survey into all our social platforms so we can drive some engagement. And
That'd
for
be
those
great.
that are listening, we have a couple of states watching here and quite a few people in the Commonwealth. Check out the comment section of all these social platforms where the survey link will be dropped. What's
Great,
the
thank you.
importance of the results? How will the engagement with the survey be utilized?
Well, I think to kind of guide our evaluation of the proposals that we get from developers, community engagement on the part of the developer is going to be very important too, the selected developer. I mean, community engagement does not end
Yeah.
with this survey, right? This is, it's an ongoing process. I guess I would also add, though, that the university is not going to be able to respond to every single desire
Of course.
of the community, right? But the objective of soliciting all the input is really to see, what issues are most important, what ones rise to the top, and to try to address what we can.
So I actually printed out the survey with the questions, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about them if you don't mind, because there's the same type of questions, but they're very specific to each site, right? So,
Yes.
so the same set of questions, but one's specific to North Fork, one
Yes.
is specific to Wurtland, and one's specific to Piedmont. And where I think these questions are important in formulating your decisions, right now, housing type is one of the questions. Let's say Piedmont. What is the most important housing types, including your location? You have multiple choices, all the way from single-family detached to 5 stories. So I think where this is a great tool and help quantify your queue of your qualifications end of it. If a lot of folks are saying we want only single-family detached homes in this parcel, it's going to formulate the development process going forward. Is that correct, Alice?
It is, but I think that, when developers look at the qualifications and look at the sites, they're going to have to evaluate, what can go where. If density and the maximum number of units is the goal, you're not going to get that with only single-family residences, detached residences on Piedmont, right? While at North Fork, which has, much greater size and acreage, you'll be able to get a much better mix.
Yeah, your pen can go to work on that.
That's exactly right. And so, we are not stipulating, when we put out the qualifications, that the developer must use only one site or 2 sites. They can put together, we're hoping that they put together a very creative package of financing, of, being able to utilize the sites for what they're strongest for. So, we're really interested in seeing, again, the point of your the survey questions is to inform what the community would like to see.
With little pink,
I see
little
that.
pink
You're
posties,
prepared.
huh?
Thank
Look
you.
at
Loves
that.
posties.
I love little posties.
Well, it helps.
I can't read the little stuff. The big stuff I can read. The little words I can't read.
Yeah.
But one of the questions is to talk about that. Would you be in favor of higher density, right? We have this conversation on the show constantly, right? Is density good? Is density bad? How do you feel about this? We have in my opinion, a housing shortage crisis, right? I mean, that's where we're in at this point. So am I willing to see more density on this property or not, which I thought was a rather unique question to ask, and see what the respondents are going to be on that end of it. Any feedback on the 300-400 that's already come in? Anything that's floating to the top? Have we had a chance to digest any of it at the moment?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess, well, one thing that we are not surprised about at all is that the North Fork site, the big issue is transportation.
That's what I wanted to get
You know,
to.
the bus system does not go out that far, and so it would have to be a car-based kind of, living arrangement. Hopefully, that could change.
That's right. We're hoping
in the future
that it's more
as more and more
right.
develops north of town in that area. But that's kind of something that
A couple of Fridays ago, we spent Jerry will jump in on this. We spent a bunch of time talking to Diantha McKeel and Ted Reek,
CEO of John.
Oh, right.
Yeah. How have a couple of questions I have, and we'll get to some of the viewers' questions from Virginia Beach and Richmond and here in Albemarle County and Charlottesville. How have the jurisdictions responded to the initiatives? The City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County and leadership within each jurisdiction. They've been welcoming. One of the things we've identified on this show and on other shows we do, red tape is certainly caused a barrier of entry for housing. And you look at, for example, $400,000 newly constructed house, 24% of the cost of that $400K ask is associated with government red tape. How have the jurisdictions responded to these initiatives?
Well, I think very positively, because, we are trying to help solve an overall, local issue in availability of affordable housing. So I would say we haven't gotten into all the nitty-gritty that we will need to discuss with them about entitlements and, zoning and all that kind of thing. So that's to
But
come.
will it go through that process,
Well,
Alice?
so
that's-
So
we're still
this is a
discussing
question that I've
Right,
asked
we're
all
still
the time,
discussing
and I
it.
can't get an answer to. Maybe Alice can.
Well, let me just say that, that, we have been trying to communicate and be as transparent as possible. Colette sits with you,
Yep.
Keith, on the Regional Housing
Yep.
Partnership. I sit on the Housing Advisory Council, HAC, and also on LUPEC, which is Land Use Environmental Planning Commission, with many of my colleagues in the
Don't you
city
love
and the
these
county.
acronyms?
I know.
It's like,
It takes
really?
a while to really kind of get
You
into
have them
it.
down now.
Well, I'm
Really?
working on it.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Who knew a Queens girl could do that? Huh? Who knew that?
Got
Can
me
you
off-
just give him a
I got
slap?
you.
Give him a slap.
I got you.
he's got me off track now.
He
You
always
if you
does.
want. It's
She's gonna
totally
forget what she was
okay.
going to say.
It's true. That's the age thing. And I looked at you, Keith, specifically for that.
But on the age comment, give me a high five.
Alice. That was
Anyway.
funny.
I've been waiting for the New Yorker to come out on that end of it.
So we have been trying to share the information with our colleagues in the city and the county. We haven't engaged them formally yet because we, don't know how this is going to go. Clearly, there are entitlements that, developing on state land may be easier
Sure.
than developing on private land or ground leasing. So we still have to discuss all that.
So of the three
internally.
parcels, I believe,
So Piedmont is solely state property.
so that's owned by UVA.
Portland and
technically.
10th is shared between the foundation and the university,
not know
and
that.
North Fork is the foundation. But they're already in the process of rezoning
The
those
North Fork
parcels.
is
North
in the
Fork.
system already, yeah.
Exactly right.
So the vision on that is to carve off a portion of that parcel for this project?
Well,
is that
there
the
are
thinking?
562 acres out
Yeah,
there. So
correct.
I think the first parcel we're talking about out there is about 40 acres.
Got it.
But there are 3 parcels that they're in the process of rezoning.
And this is a question that I've been mulling around in my head here, because UVA's contribution to this is the land, right? Right, so we want to make sure that that's super clear to everybody.
Yes.
UVA
This
is
is a huge contribution.
the,
Yeah, huge contribution.
Well, we're hoping that that taking out the cost of land in that development will, support
Make
the-
development affordable.
Exactly.
Yeah, very, very huge contribution.
And expertise on our end,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, the amount of time that we've all,
Sure.
committed to this, is part of this.
but how are
all
we
as
going
well.
to do that, right? So is the vision for all of this to be rental units? Because we have a sale issue, right? If I'm buying something and the land is not owned in the state of Virginia, everything goes with the land. I know a little bit about this because I chair a land trust, and we have a model that this works exceptionally well in. But has that been kind of thought through, that process? Are we going to only be looking at an ownership model, or is it going to be?
So basically what he's asking, in very
Thank you
layman's
for
terms, will the folks that own this housing, the affordable housing, will they own the dirt? Or will they just own the
Or
structure?
is it just going to be rentals?
Or is it a rental?
a rental
Yeah.
environment?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think that's still to be determined ultimately. I do think there are certain parcels that the university will likely not want to sell the land.
Sure.
And will do a ground lease.
Sure.
But someplace like North Fork, I mean, I think there's potential there for home ownership. And you asked earlier what is kind of coming out. I mean, I think that is what we hear from the community, that they want a path to home ownership.
That's exactly right.
And maybe we can address some of that.
So
but
that's why this conversation today is so important, because as putting my recovering developer hat on, some people, I say I'm in my 10th step, maybe I'm in my first step, but my recovering, that's
Talk to his wife.
Yeah, Mrs. Smith will tell you, I haven't even got to the first step, but that's a whole different
And
issue.
she's watching, Keith.
Yeah, I know. I tend to get myself in a ton of trouble with
Your
Mrs.
buddy's
Smith.
saying
Yeah,
behave.
But I agree 100%, looking at these parcels, and because I'm on the community engagement team, I'm a little bit on the front end of some of this stuff, these projects. I mean, Norfolk has to have, in my opinion, a mixed-use scenario. It has to have a mixed use between rental and ownership. The other two sites, I don't quite see that being possible, the ownership component in that end of it. I may be wrong on that end of it.
So when you said mixed use, my mind
Oh,
went
yeah,
to
yeah,
something
yeah.
else.
I'm sorry.
But
I apologize.
mixed ownership, you meant.
Mixed income.
Mixed income.
You meant mixed
Well, it's really an ownership model,
Right, an ownership,
It's an
yeah.
ownership model, and also mixed income.
Yeah.
And your brain and my brain on mixed use went to commercial,
Right.
residential,
Which
live,
I
work,
think is
play.
totally possible too. So that's why we're open to kind of creative solutions, right? With the goal, with the goal of providing as much affordability as possible, having those three different sized parcels, I would imagine, going to a recovering developer, right? Would you say that gives you a certain amount of freedom to think about a viable
Oh, yeah. So
development?
I think the path to creating this is much easier at Norfolk, right? You'll get a deeper pool of
Right.
developers and partners that will reach out to that because of this mixed use. This is where the trends are going. I think you're going, in my opinion, this is totally my opinion for the sake of a talk show here.
But does doing something, at North Fork enable you to do something a little more affordable? Because you have a larger parcel.
Yeah, correct. So that's a
bigger mix,
typical,
right?
the typical developer 101, get me my density, right? So I can increase my density, which means that I can then take a deeper dive into affordability somewhere over here.
Right.
I think the other two parcels are, you're looking at firms that design, build, and stay in the affordable housing space, and they're going to own the parcels.
And those questions are coming in. Exactly what we're talking about here. This one's from Bob Yarborough, who's in Albemarle County. He was a national executive with Habitat for Humanity. Has this question. Love this discussion, and I'm thrilled to see UVA making the first of what I hope are many substantial investments in affordable housing. He's curious, are we talking mixed income development or straight up 100% affordable?
So I apologize. I'll let you answer.
Well, I think we're thinking mixed income.
Yeah.
Right? That there's a range of AMI.
On all three parcels.
Yeah.
I think so, but again, we're not the experts here.
Well,
We're hoping to engage those in those discussions with the developers.
So when we say, when we say in an affordable housing initiative, it's, maybe I'm misquoting it, it's really a housing initiative, right? It's not just going to be, I think that's where the question is, it's just not going to be serving the 80% AMI and below. This is going to be a little bit more mixed as far as income is concerned.
Yeah,
Is that the
I
thinking?
think that would be correct, Keith, because I think ultimately our partners are going to have to develop more than 1,000 to 1,500 units
That's
of
exactly right.
housing in order to get 1,500 affordable.
Or we go to Alice's thinking and my thinking when I misused the word mixed use, right? Where you bring in the commercial component that can offset some of the affordable housing, right? So you look at it.
Is that part of the plan?
Well, I think that that's part of the community engagement. If we hear that it'd be very helpful to have a grocery store on the corner of,
Right.
of something, or a clinic, or that's very helpful for us to then go out and write up these design guidelines, and then enable the developers to be thinking in broader terms.
So full circle back to the survey, full circle back to how my thinking of how this impacts the Q part of the qualification, the RFQ part of it. The fifth question is which services are most needed in your neighborhood, and you get to pick three, and it ranges from healthcare to food services, banking, and I believe there's also a provision in here where you can add your own thoughts or something along those.
Childcare.
But I believe if you want something that's not in those boxes,
Right, yeah.
you can say whatever it might be. So that's why this survey is so important.
And look at this, Johnny Ornalis, friend of the network, loyal listener. I just did my part and completed the survey. Thank
you,
you for
John.
sharing the
Excellent.
link.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
please engage with the survey that has been shared. J-Dubs, if you can continue, Judah Wickhauer, if you can continue sharing that survey, that would mean a lot. This question is coming in from outside Philadelphia. The
That's a big
developers.
reach.
Yeah.
It's a long reach, Jerry.
Yeah. The developer,
Usually I'm
is it an
overseas.
affordable housing developer that is going to be focused upon, or developers in the sense of general terms?
Well, I think we're going to look to developers who've had experience doing
Affordable housing.
well,
But as a public
housing with
institution,
affordability.
Yeah, but as a
Right.
public institution, this is an open solicitation. The RFQ is an open solicitation, so.
Are we gonna weight locals over out of, give them
Good
weight them a
follow-up
li-
question.
weight them a little bit more on that? It's just
Yeah.
nobody's watching. It's just four of us BS and having a good
Well,
time.
I think that, another one of the president's initiatives is to help,
Local. Yeah.
and enjoyment, employment. So I think that, I don't know about weighting
Yeah,
the
yeah, sure,
issue, but I
sure.
certainly think that that's one of the criteria we'll
Well,
think about.
the reason I asked that question is, in my spheres, these are questions I'm being asked, right? Or, will local nonprofits, for-profits, folks that are in this space have a better opportunity than somebody coming out from whatever they may come?
Would we love a local, team
Got it.
to be the best team that responds? Absolutely.
I get the value proposition of institutional memory and understanding how the local market
The
works.
community,
The
yeah.
community,
Yeah.
and what resonates with the community.
On top
Yeah.
of that, the relationships are already
Yeah,
established, right?
That's the institutional memory. Yeah, absolutely.
And they're established with the potential rezoning, which is an important assuming we may have to do rezonings in some of these parcels, which my suspicion is we will.
They know how to do it already.
They know
Yeah.
how to do it.
Yeah.
They know how to connect with the
Right.
local folks and bring it. So I would hope that when I use the word weight, that we some sort of preference on top of it.
This is, so, Mr. Yarborough, Bob, thank you for contributing to the program. He concurs and agrees with Alice's comment. Mixed income helps with a variety of issues, including NIMBYism challenges and possibly stigmatizing homeowners. Thank you for asking the question, and thank you for answering the question, he says. This is an interesting question, and I'm going to rephrase it. I believe, are you in Richmond now, Andre? Are you in Charlottesville? And the best to your family. And me paraphrasing a longer question. What is the benefit to the university for these initiatives? Clearly goodwill, social equity, showing that the university is involved in focusing and growing the community positively or benefits. Have other benefits also been discussed?
Well, I just think generally the university being a good community partner. We live in this community, our faculty and staff live in this community. This housing is not designed, will not be designed specifically or reserved for university employees, but we have some of the same issues that other businesses do, in that we have nurses and other, our police force, other, my facilities management folks. I oversee facilities at the university and the trades and whatnot, who can't afford to live in Charlottesville and drive fairly long distances to get to the university every day to work.
That's not exclusive to quote unquote the workforce part of it, I have doctors and I have, upper income folks that we have to go out to find them something that they can afford, right? So this affording comment is not specific to a certain job description. It's the same thing. And to add a little bit more to that and play off of Jerry's comment on that, it is goodwill and all that stuff, but it's also good business, right? You are trying to retain and recruit talent in a marketplace which is pretty hard to do.
Yes.
And getting more difficult.
Yeah.
And
And your new employees are quite surprised at the housing prices in Charlottesville
Right.
when they come here.
I mean, to put it in perspective, and Alice, jump in here. My better half, and way better half, she knows this, from finance in New York City at Blackstone. And when somehow charmed her to come down here, she was astonished with how expensive it was to come down here, saying in some circumstances even higher than renting in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. Because the idea or the stigma is South, affordable, but this market is an anomaly in a lot of ways. And we benefit from that because we're insulated from macro trends from an economy standpoint, but it's a very expensive market.
And to play off of that a little further, that's the reason why we all spend so much time talking about this. And this is frankly why, this is a nationwide crisis at the moment, this lack of inventory. It just started with 5.5 million short of new construction units. It just snowballs it out that way. But, even in the time of great unpleasantness, right, the last recession, we were pretty insulated from that here. It impacted quite a few folks, me personally, but quite a few folks on that end of it. But we people come here. I'm going to the opera tomorrow. People love all this stuff, and then they're coming and driving this stuff up. I just think, from my perspective, it took us a little while to get UVA at the table. I'm so thankful that you guys are at the table, because let's face it, UVA is the heart. Right, and all
we've dubbed it the city of UVA.
The city of UVA.
Yeah.
Well,
We've dubbed it. I mean, I
like the fact we're inextricably linked,
Yeah.
right?
There
Where
you
the
go.
success of UVA is the success of Charlottesville and Albemarle, and vice versa.
That's very well said, Alice. That's very well said. This is from Neil Williamson on Twitter, president of the Free Enterprise Forum.
Yes.
He says, affordable rentals are also a part of the housing affordability solution. Not everyone is able or desirous of home ownership. More housing everywhere for everyone.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're creating more supply. That's going to free up additional units for everyone on the socioeconomic stratosphere
Yeah.
or supply chain.
Yep. And I think the 3 sites also contribute to that. Maybe not everybody wants to live, at Ortland and 10th or Piedmont, so it allows us to. We understand that transit is an issue, but maybe people don't necessarily have to commute to Charlottesville every day for work. So it affords choices.
So you may not be able to answer this question, Colette, but from an employee workforce perspective, how many of your employees are now full-time remote working, or we're doing hybrid? So is that changing the dynamic at all?
Yeah, it certainly has. I think since we're still in a rather rocky public health
Sure.
consideration as regards the pandemic, I think a large portion of our workforce is still remote to the degree they can be. If you're student facing in any kind of a function, then you're back on grounds. The faculty certainly are back in the classroom, but many of our back office. Administrative functions, finance, HR, others are still working remote. Yeah.
So is that going to change? Is it going to stay? What do you
No,
think?
I think it's changed for good in that. And one of our initiatives, we have a future of work group that is looking at how to be more flexible. The university had very few remote workers before the pandemic, and if we're going to be able to attract and retain employees, we're going to have to be more flexible about the work arrangements we have.
So, Alice, do you know if the Norfolk has fiber out that far, high-speed internet, broadband? I'm not sure if it does.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah.
We
They
have the
must
whole
with the
town center.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. with the research
Sure.
parks.
So we'll have
businesses
high speed
that are out there.
Oh, yeah.
internet.
And that's not even, really remote, right?
Correct, but Albemarle County.
That's urban ring.
But
Yes.
Albemarle
Yeah.
County as a
Yeah.
whole has been struggling, trying to keep up with some of the other counties in our jurisdiction, Nelson in particular, to kind of get high-speed internet all around. I just couldn't remember if it's there. I know, like in Earlysville, which is not too far from that, high-speed internet is a bit of a challenge
Yeah.
out that way. So we'll be able to remote work, right?
You could work in North Fork too, right? I mean, you could be living there and working there.
Is there an opportunity to create academic epicenters around these 3 sites where we're creating density of human capital and then scaling or utilizing that human capital density for micro academic villages within the sites? Is that being discussed?
Well, there's already academic components at each 3 sites. When you think about Piedmont, it's right in the midst,
Of
of
grounds,
grounds
yeah,
between Fontaine, where, there's research and clinics, et cetera, and West Grounds, which is all sports oriented. Wurtland and 10th is right at the, one of the entries, the edges between the university
Gateway.
and the city. So there's already that hub. And North Fork has academic components to it as well. So
That's right.
part of what you're saying already there. I don't know that
Exists.
we're thinking about investing in academic hubs, away from grounds, but I think that was certainly part and parcel of the decision to look at those three sites in particular.
And North Fork, in addition, has the whole defense industry connection
Right.
with the campus that's across the 29 from there.
And that's why I keep on gravitating to Norfolk as far as a development perspective.
That's fantastic.
That's, if I was in the pool to put an RFQ on it, from my background and experience, that's the one I'd be most interested in trying to work on. I think you're going to look at the 2 other ones with more infill city kind of developers. And I'm assuming everybody is thinking there's going to be multiple partners, one partner for one site, one partner for another, or are we trying to tie this all together into one partner, or have we thought that far through on it?
We're not presupposing anything.
Got it.
This one from LinkedIn, what are the challenges we're seeing to actualize these initiatives that seem extremely positive? That's a good question from Susan.
Well, Colette, you mentioned we're not going to please everybody. That's the hard
Well,
part,
yeah.
right? I think that there's questions.
Yeah, I think the university has made it clear from the beginning that land is our contribution. We have to be cognizant of our public nature.
Sure.
And this is, not our core business, obviously. So we think those are some managing expectations. I think perhaps is a challenge.
But
for the
Colette, if you
university.
go ahead and if somebody goes ahead and takes a look at the page for these projects, right? You have multiple teams with multiple folks from multiple fields or of influence. I happen to sit on the communication side at the end of it. I know there's, I think, 2 other proportions, 2 other committees that are connected to the housing component of, but you have different folks from different spheres in the community. So you have some pretty smart, maybe with the exception of myself, but pretty smart folks at the table guiding you guys. So I think you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
We hope so.
We're hoping,
we
yeah.
hope so.
We're evolving,
Well, I mean, I think we got to emphasize that they're contributing, they're trying, they're making the effort, and it's been a topic since, in particular locally in the 2019 council election, where the candidates won on platforms focused on affordable housing initiatives, and unfortunately, because of this pandemic, some of those initiatives have been placed on the back burner because we've just been trying to survive through the pandemic. So now that if there is light at the end of the tunnel, we can focus on this goal again. I think we got to keep that in perspective for those that are saying, hey, we want this and we want more, we want this. This is something tangible that is happening.
it's a start.
It's a start.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a big start.
Yeah.
That's a big number. 1,000 to 1,500 is a big ambitious.
I mean, to put it in perspective, on Monday, there were 37 active listings
That's right.
on the real estate market in Albemarle County alone.
Yeah.
37. And we're talking 1,000 to 1,500 rooftops here, or beds, or doorways, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if you choose to pick a number that we all define as affordable, that number is substantially less than that. So where this may be helpful, right? We talk about inventory all the time. Where this may be helpful is it starts loosening up some other inventory, and you know Colette, you and I've had a ton of conversations off air. You guys are doing the right thing. You're going down the right road. Everybody's gonna make mistakes, right? We're it's just the way it is. But as long as we're transparent, and as long as we're communicating with everybody to the best of our abilities, this will work out. We will get there. I think what's important to set expectations. This is a long haul.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also
Yes,
to
it
remember
is.
that perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And perfect is the enemy
Yeah.
of productivity.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to learn from this process, and that'll help us in the next round, in the next phase.
So from an architect's perspective, right, I'll throw a little bit of my old building skills out on that, right? Sometimes if somebody hands you a set of plans and you roll your eyes, it's sometimes better just done by somebody else. Sometimes it's better just to rip that up and say, thank you very much, and let's talk about it and start from the beginning. So, yes, we're going to learn, we're going to move, we're going to improve, but we're starting, and this is what excites me about this, we're starting from 3 clean slates, right? And we're starting from 3 clean slates that we can actually try to make some substantial impact on what's going
Did you,
forward.
and I mean, a follow-up question to what you asked, is this going to be a proof of performance for potentially future efforts? These 3, are they the, lack of a better phrase, the betas?
Well, I think by definition, probably. We haven't done it before.
Uh-huh.
We're going to learn from this process and hopefully improve as we go into the next round.
Uh-huh.
Well, I will say I've publicly said that that's what we should do.
That these are the pops?
Absolutely. I think, and I might get myself into a little bit of trouble here, but I tend to do that on a regular basis. I think, from a perspective of community engagement, from a perspective of learning, it may be better to chew off a smaller project. I've always believed that was the right path on that end of it. Make some of our mistakes at that level, and multiply, as we said earlier, multiply them out. That was if I was the one making the decisions, that's the path I personally would have taken.
So does this fit into that category that you're saying? Is this a pop?
Oh.
In your definition?
Maybe yes, maybe no yes. Right?
Maybe no yes?
Maybe a little bit, and maybe a lot of no.
This is definitely a pop. This is fantastic.
Well, this is a pop, but my
This is
vision.
another acronym for me, so
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I've never
a
heard of
proof
that
of
one.
performance. This is great.
Okay.
I mean, as someone that's, I've been here 21 years, and it's not getting more affordable, and we have 5% of the county is allocated to development. And of that 5%, it's commercial and residential.
Yeah.
And let's cut to the chase. Who owns more land than you guys? I mean, I can't think of another entity.
well, the city, the county, and
But they're not going to get into the housing development game.
But let's change it. There's not too many private sector folks that own more than
we're also
You guys,
not private sector.
yeah, you guys are in private sector, but you know
Right.
what he means. The
Yeah, I do.
city and the county aren't going to get into this game when they're just trying to balance budgets. I mean, they had a closed door session earlier this week where they're thinking about a 13-cent real estate tax increase just to meet a balanced budget. The city.
And I'm getting texts from city councilors as I'm sitting here, wanting to ask a couple of questions, but we've already covered them, so I won't go back around that end of it. So they're engaged in this process, right? The city councils, the board of supervisors are engaged in this process, and they're watching this closely. You were going to say something, Alex?
I was just going to say, one of the best things to come out of this is that, we have developed relationships,
Yeah.
right, with, all of you and the city and the county, and other developers like, Habitat and
So how do we
FAR
grow
and all
that? Because, Colette, one of the reasons why I was trying for these number of years to get UVA at certain tables, I never understood why there wasn't a closer town and gown relationship. I never understood. I get asked these questions from I've just
That's a
that was not
universal
a
question.
softball.
That's a universal question.
That's
though,
a-
Keith,
For
right?
every
university.
jurisdiction.
Exactly. Every higher education institution.
Right.
You know,
has-
And
I
look,
came from
if you're
Yale
uncomfortable, we'll do the whole sip the coffee routine. If you
Right.
sip the
Yeah,
coffee,
yeah.
we'll move on to a
We may
different
need
topic.
2 hours for that question right there.
But
Right.
but I'm thankful we are now, right? It's just, I had conversations with Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors about this topic. And they were like, why should we care what UVA is doing? And I said, well, we're all interconnected, right? And I was trying to get to earlier that UVA is this heart, right? And as the health of UVA goes Fluvanna County, which is the leg or the left leg, Nelson is the right leg, whatever it is on this end of it. And it is pushing this lifeblood out there because the four of us at this table wouldn't be at this table if it wasn't for UVA. So, this communication between the jurisdictions, the different jurisdictions, and I know we're focusing on Charlottesville and Albemarle, but this impacts Nelson, this impacts Greene, this impacts Louisa, this impacts Fluvanna County. And, since I represent a regional body, I'm kind of bringing their positions to the conversation, but is there any intent to reach out to some of those areas for a little bit of feedback from that end of it, from the jurisdictions that are outside, the rural ones? Because that's where your employees are going.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's where many of our employees live, in all of those jurisdictions, not the least of which is even over the mountain in Waynesboro, too. But I can't say that there are any immediate, plans to do that. Keith, no.
Alice, anything you want to jump in on this?
No.
No.
Why don't we-
No New York bagel conversation, but, did we open that conversation up? Have you found a decent pizza around here?
Well, of course. I mean, and I have to say, Bodo's is, ranks pretty high, even from a Queens girl who, there was a bagel place on every corner.
It's funny. Joe Gentile with Pearl Certification, one of our sponsors, he's a Long Island boy, New York boy. He's coming in on the 8th of February. We're going to talk some stuff. And I opened up that subject. I said, every time I go to go back to visit my family up there, I bring Bodo's bagels because they asked for them. And he thought that was like sacrilege.
I know, but, it
yeah.
really...
Pretty darn good.
They are.
Yeah.
It really breaks my theory that it's all about the New York water, that makes the New York bagel. So I don't.
The difference is the way they kettle boil it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Possible.
So you want to get a pizza around here. Where do you get a pizza at?
That's a good question. Mellow Mushroom's pretty high. Christian's on the Mall is pretty
Okay.
high.
Crozet.
And Lampo.
Rosé pizza.
That
good.
Crozet.
Lamp-
Dr.
Lampo.
Hose.
Lampo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Well done.
We got some
ladies.
good pizza places here.
There
What
are.
about what about
And that's coming from New Haven too, right?
I see that.
what about a cocktail? Where do you guys go for a cocktail? What's your go-to cocktail place? And what is your go-to cocktail?
My husband's old fashioned.
Really?
There you go.
Oh, talk about that. How does he make that? Any secret recipe?
Strong.
Strong. Well, you just came back from a.
But we just came back from doing the Bourbon Trail after Christmas, which was quite the experience. Would highly recommend it.
Kentucky.
It's great. Yes, we stayed in Louisville and went up to about 7 different distilleries. And
Which was your favorite?
I would have to say Woodford and Maker's Mark.
Good
And
taste.
you got to do the whole thing.
Yeah, I dipped my own bottle
There's
at
some over
Maker's
there.
and everything. Yeah.
How about this? Why don't we close with just some final words for the community? I think, and emphasizing this again, you guys are doing something positive here. It's tangible. It's actual.
Yeah.
It's maybe a message on that, and we'll close the show.
Well, I guess I would just say, be patient, give us some grace. I mean, we are trying to do something that we have not a lot of experience, no experience in. We're trying to do the best we can, and we can certainly use all the input from those who know this line of work better than we do. And we're really sincere about this. And want to see this happen and want to make the community a better place for it.
So the important takeaway: we're only providing land. We're providing guidance, right? And
Be patient.
Be patient.
Yeah. Let's work together. Engage with the survey.
Yes, please.
The survey is super important because it's it took me literally 5 minutes to do it this morning, right? It's not that, it doesn't take a lot of time to do it, but it's very impactful in the information. So, if you want to have some say in this process going forward, please do the survey, please fill it out. You only got a couple more days to do it.
Right.
This is, I'm sorry, you said how many people chimed in as of this morning?
Over 500.
Over 500, which is good.
That's awesome.
Yep.
2 or 3 days ago, it was only
That's great,
it was only a couple of hundred, so
Yep.
that's a great
Yes, correct.
that's a great sign. But this 500,000, whatever the number is going to help inform what's going to happen for a substantial period of time. So please chime in.
Yeah, we're very sensitive to a lot of survey fatigue, but this really is important. And, I second everything Colette stated, also to say that this is not the last, of the community engagement
Yeah,
we're
that's
going to have.
important.
That,
That's important.
we're hoping to be engaged with the community through every step of the way. When the developers come on board, we'll have, we'd like to have volunteers and real turnout to help design this.
Alice, is this your first podcast?
It is.
Really?
You did a fantastic
Oh,
job.
wow.
Thank
you too,
you.
Colette.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Seriously.
Really? You did great.
Thank you for joining
I
us.
thought you guys
Colette's a pro.
Is this your second time on a podcast?
Second podcast,
Yeah.
yes.
Second time. Well, you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Colette and Alice,
It was
excellent work.
Enjoyable.
Appreciate it.
And I'm going to see you in
Yeah.
45 minutes, right?
Yes, you are.
Colette and I are going to be, how many hours were on that thing? I think it's like 3 hours.
Like 4
No,
hours or
is it 4
something.
hours?
On a Friday?
Yeah.
Do you know the chairman of that organization?
Yeah, I do,
You
and
think-
I don't know why
Okay,
he
what are you
picked a
talking
Friday
about?
afternoon.
I didn't pick it. I was told. So I think the chairman's going to
It's a
shorten this.
regional housing.
We're going to shorten this up a little bit.
Strategy
Gosh.
session.
Guys, the I Love CVille show is up in an hour and 15 minutes with Dr. Karen Wolf of Pediatric and Associates to talk masking in schools. For Colette, Alice, and Keith, my name is Jerry, and our esteemed North Star, our director, Judah Wickower. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk. Have a good morning. Take care.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's going to tell us
We're
in a
off.
second when we're clear.